Why would the subtalar joint have such a big impact on your client's hip and back problems? Got any ideas? Let us know in the comments below what your theories are. In the meantime, I've got a couple theories, so let's talk about those. The ankle has two joints, not just one. We have what's called the ankle joint or the hinge joint that allows this motion, flexion and pointing of the foot. That is the talus bone underneath the tibia and the fibula, and basically is only supposed to hinge up and down. Now, you have another joint underneath that, the talus on top of the calcaneus, which is called the subtalar joint, and that allows for inversion and eversion of the foot, which is actually a very important and necessary mechanical motion for walking. If we only had the hinge and we didn't have the ability to shift the plane of the foot, we would only be able to walk straight on flat ground, right? But the ground traditionally was very uneven, and you need to be able to plane the foot in response to the uneven ground that you're walking on, right? And that's basically what the subtalar joint is for, is to allow that ability to step on something and actually have the ankle roll, but still be strong enough and able to not just like sprain itself immediately or have you just fall over because there's no ability to do this. For a lot of us though, if we have had an ankle sprain, the subtalar joint gets stuck. Some people it's stuck in both directions, and most people it keeps the ability to invert but loses the ability to evert. And this can cause a lot of problems. If, for instance, and I'm going to show this demonstration here, if I want to stand here and balance on one foot, I need to shift my body in this direction to put my foot on the middle of my body. And in order to do that and not have me tip over that way, the foot needs to plane this way. Right? If I don't have the ability to do that and I go to do that, I'm either going to stand on the outside of my foot and have to lean with my hip in order to balance, or I fall, one or the other. And so if the subtalar joint loses its ability to evert, I really have a very hard time just standing and balancing on one foot like this. Right? If I don't evert, I'm now suddenly falling and doing all sorts of weird things with my hips to balance. So, there are a couple of very simple ways that you can help the subtalar joint restore its ability to move both in inversion and eversion. And so the very first thing is just to check that. Does it have that ability? They have the ability very easily from old ankle sprains, let's say, to invert. But if you look at this top-down camera, I can't really evert past neutral at all. This can go almost 90 degrees inverted, but eversion, it's not really there, especially on this left side. And so first I can just take the calcaneus and use all sorts of ways of trying to get it to evert more, just gradually moving through that joint. The most basic one is just to gradually work the joint in the socket and warm it up and get the tissue moving such that you can start to get it to move into eversion for most people. All right, so that's the first simple technique, and even that will start to improve the ability of the joint to move again. Next, I can do some very gentle cross-fiber friction right behind the malleoli. I'll start on the lateral one here, and in this camera, I'll do it on this side so you can see how these fingers are coming around to the lateral side and just doing a little cross-fiber friction right behind the malleolus. You want to be careful and ask the client if they're feeling any nerves or if it's just intense achiness. So Zara, is this nervy or is it just unpleasant?
I'd say it's about 6 or 7.
It's a 6 or 7, but you're not feeling like electrical shocky stuff?
Not mostly, but like maybe just a little bit.
Okay. And there is a nerve that crosses through here, so you just want to be cognizant that you're not staying on that nerve and continually providing friction there. So here, that's not nervy, or is it?
No.
No. Great. And so I can do a little bit back and forth. I'm just taking my finger pad and sliding it along there. And that, yeah, there we go. That should help and open up. So now they have the ability to maybe evert 10, 15 degrees, whereas before I really couldn't get it past just neutral. So that's nice and an improvement for sure. Let me just do the other side so that we have some balance. So when you're doing this, you definitely want to check in with the client about nerves. Just make sure that they're not feeling electrical feelings or zappy feelings. And if they are and you hit it accidentally, that's okay, but don't stay on it. With most of my clients where this is an issue, I also want to give them some homework so that they can work on this range of motion at home, because just doing this on the table will start the process, but they really need to be doing a few different things at home to really lock it in. Next, we identified that their subtalar joint is a little stuck, especially on your left ankle. I'm trying to remember. So this is a stretch for the subtalar joint that I learned from a guy who invented a system called Zogo. So basically you want to start leaning against something. I've seen some people do this in like downward dog. I don't have anywhere near the calf flexibility for that. So I'll do this leaning against a desk or bed or anything, sofa. And you put one foot in front of the other. What we're doing is stretching the back subtalar joint by crossing our body over here, putting our foot into eversion, and crossing over here, putting it into inversion. And the goal is to make sure that the foot stays completely stuck to the ground. I'm pretty good this way. As I come here, I have a harder time, and my foot wants to do that, but I have to really try to keep it down. And I can just work back and forth here. Now you'll notice as I try this on the other side, which is way more stuck, I have a much harder time here keeping that foot down. But this is a really great self stretch for the subtalar joint. So let me have you try that. So one foot back with the heel all the way on the ground. The front leg is going to cross over your body, yep. And then all the way to the other side. Yep, there you go. And try to keep this heel down. You should feel that here as a little bit of a stretch. And then go the other way and try to keep this down. Feel that as a little stretch here. And just keep coming nice and easy back and forth. It doesn't have to be a held stretch. It's more about mobilizing it. And really just try to keep that sticking to the ground. Yeah. So we could really try to hold this and make a stretch happen, but I'm more interested in just mobilizing the tissue and getting the brain to understand that there's mobility there. So rather than sit and really try to hold the stretch, you can just move back and forth, and over time, if you were to do this a little bit every day, it would get more and more mobilized, but also stronger. So that's a great home exercise as well. So one last piece of homework I'll give a client, especially if that subtalar joint is really stuck, is single leg balance work, right? Which, according to modern science, is one of the biggest indicators of longevity, is the ability to balance on one leg and hold it, right? Essentially, this will help you not fall over when you're older and break something, right? So in order to do this properly and not hike up that hip, I need to be able to evert slightly into the subtalar joint that way, just like we were just showing in the other stretch. And so I need now to allow that slight eversion to happen so that the ball of the big toe drops onto the floor, that this hip doesn't come up in response to that. And I can balance here and hold for as long as possible. And this might start out barely being able to hold it at all, and I want clients to work on this until they can at least do this for 30 seconds on each side. So let me have you try that. So you want to feel like, now notice the tendency to want to tip the top to one side or the other. Try to drop the left hip even as you're lifting the left knee. All right, yep. And in order to do that, this has to come down. There you go. And I'm gonna make one last adjustment. There. Not bad. Switch sides. So drop this hip, lift this knee, press the ball of the big toe into the floor. There you go. That's how you're going to be able to do that. That's going to really help you build an arch.
I feel it building.
I feel it building. It's building. All right, excellent, thank you. So there you go. Now you have an idea of why the subtalar joint has such an impact on the low back and hips for your clients. And we've given you some ways to free up a stuck subtalar joint. We have a 3-hour webinar coming up this Saturday, if you're seeing this video when we put it out. And it's worth 3 New York State and NCBTMB credits for massage therapy continuing education. It's gonna be in the description below, so if you're interested at all to learn more and go way more in depth with this, come to that webinar. And if you miss it, or if you're watching this much later, we also have a 2-day 12-credit live classroom workshop on the foot and ankle that's great too. So check both of those out in the description below. And we think you'll like this video as well.